the Federal Trade Commission, this is the Biden-Harris administration, and they are going after the big drug companies. This is actually a pretty amazing thing. You've heard of these things called pharmacy benefit managers, and basically what they are middlemen. They insert themselves between the pharmaceutical manufacturer and the wholesale purchaser, the big drug chains, for example. And it used to be that the pharmacy benefit managers were actually independent companies or in some cases even independent individuals who played this role, and they were supposed to help, coordinate and figure out, where can we get the best prices. And this it particularly came along when in the early days of the generic drug movement back, 30 years ago or thereabouts. But they no longer really serve any useful purpose, at least that I can tell. I mean, educate me if I'm wrong here. And B, they take a hell of a lot of money and put it in their own pockets. And so what happened was that the big companies started buying out the pharmacy benefit managers, because the pharmacy benefit manager, it was an incredible con. It was just like, hey, we're just going to skim money off the top here. Okay, so so the big drug companies and the insurance companies are like, well, hey, let's get in on the action. CVS bought Caremark, which is a pharmacy benefit manager. Cigna, Express Scripts is now a pharmacy benefit manager. United Health Group's Optum RX is now its own pharmacy benefits manager, pharmaceuticals benefits manager. So this is what the deputy director of the Federal Trade Commission's Bureau of Competition said. And I quote, "Millions of Americans with diabetes need insulin to survive, yet for many of these vulnerable patients, their insulin drug costs have skyrocketed over the past decade, thanks in part to powerful PBMs and their greed." That's pharmacy benefit managers. Caremark, ESI, and Optum, as medication gatekeepers, have extracted millions of dollars off the backs of patients who need life-saving medications. The FTC's administrative action seeks to put an end to the big three PBMs' exploitative conduct and marks an important step in fixing a broken system, a fix that could ripple beyond the insulin market and restore healthy competition to drive down drug prices for consumers. Now, it's important to understand what's going on here. Insulin, for example, the price of insulin since 1999, in other words, the last 25 years, has gone up 1,200%, 1,200% increase in the price of insulin. And this Emma Freer, a senior policy analyst for healthcare at the American Economic Liberties Project, says while PBMs bear much of the blame, the Federal Trade Commission is right to also put brand name manufacturers like Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and Sanofi on notice for their role in this crisis. And then the New York Times notes, quote, "Some Republicans in Congress have proposed curbing some of the benefit managers' business practices, but other top Republicans have defended the PBMs and say the FTC is overreaching." Right. So, here's what's going on. With unregulated capitalism, number one, you end up with monopolies, so you no longer have competition. So you end up with these giant corporations that basically control everything. Again, it's sort of like, the world that Charles Dickens described in Christmas Carol, where you end up with, most of life being dominated by massive corporations. Back then it was the East India Company and companies associated with them. You still have some small entrepreneurs like Ebenezer Scrooge with his one employee company, his two-man company. But, they're kind of few and far between, and most people are just broke and exploited, mercilessly exploited by these big companies. And, now we've got you've got these giant corporations that have just been screwing us. This is unregulated capitalism, or in this case, deregulated capitalism. And the answer to it is to regulate capitalism, is for government to get in on to play a role in this thing. And to say, we're going to make things work for you. We're going to make it possible for you to buy insulin at a reasonable price, and still allow the companies to make a profit, just not price gouge. This is why this whole Reagan libertarian, it's basically been the Republican idea since the 1980s. David Koch ran for vice president of the United States on the Libertarian ticket in 1980 on this platform. But basically, strip all government functions, let big corporations and billionaires run America. And that's still where the Republican Party is at. And this Federal Trade Commission action is just a brilliant, perfect example of how government can function in ways that do save the middle class, do save working people.